Present.
Councilor Reynolds.
Here.
Councilor Vasquez.
Here.
Councilor Lucero.
Here.
Councilor Padilla.
Here.
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
It's okay. I got what I need.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second. Councilor Reynolds? Councilor Vasquez? Councilor Lucero? Yes. Councilor Padilla?
Yes.
It looks like everybody wants to talk when the concealed carry comes up, is that right? Cool, that'll work. Public comment and discussion of our charter compliance. Anybody out there want to tell us that we're finally in compliance? I'll say it, we're finally in compliance. Okay, approval of the regular city council meeting minutes, I found a correction in them. I don't know if anybody else did or not. But number 2, second was made by Mayor Hicks, I don't second anything.
I think you did that because Councilor Padilla could not vote because he was not here, and Councilor Vasquez voted no.
So that left just you and I.
That's right, okay. Never mind, that's not a correction. Thank you, Jean. Anything else on that? I like that. I forgot about that. Any other corrections? Because there wasn't a correction on that one, so anything else on this? I'll entertain a motion to approve the city council meeting minutes as written.
Moved.
Second,
Second.
Councilor Reynolds?
No.
Councilor Padilla, or Councilor Vasquez? Yes. Councilor Lucero?
Yes.
Councilor Padilla?
Yes.
Could I ask why no?
I thought that it didn't address Mayor Pro Tem's comments regarding his issues satisfactorily, in my opinion.
Okay.
Therefore, I didn't.
That'll work. Okay, next on the agenda. A resolution declaring opposition to the extreme risk firearm protection order. Questions, comments? Tony, Sheriff Mace, please come up here and give us your thoughts.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for allowing me an opportunity to speak on behalf of the Emergency Risk Protection Order. We do know that the governor signed this, it is going into law. However, you, Mr. Mayor, were present with me while we were debating this in the legislature and recognized some of the, heard some of the issues that were going on with it. There's been a strong stance by the New Mexico Sheriff's Association in opposition of this bill, or this law. We're currently seeking a law firm to represent the Sheriff's Association on behalf of this unconstitutional law, what we believe to be unconstitutional. I think what the City of Grants and what you should be directly concerned with is the immunity clause that's enacted in that piece of legislation. That's a direct punch at law enforcement to force their play to enforce these extreme risk protection orders. Without a doubt, we cannot deny somebody's constitutional rights to bear arms without committing a crime. We know that, it's been ruled on, there's case law out there already. What you're doing is you're allowing law enforcement to escalate a situation with these red flag, with these emergency risk protection orders. I'm gonna call them red flag because that's what they are. Essentially what you're doing is holding people guilty, you're making people guilty before innocent. You're not just denying their Second Amendment constitutional right, you're also denying their Fourth, their 14th, their First Amendment, every amendment within the Articles of the Constitution. And we're directly violating some case law that's already been held up in the higher court of the Supreme Court of New Mexico. And kind of what that boils down to is I can't go patrol the parking lots of all the local liquor establishments when I see somebody walking in and just know that we have a high fatality DWI crash rate in our state. So I can't just go patrol all the parking lots of the liquor establishment and say, I'm going to prevent a fatal crash today and tow that vehicle. And to prevent that, when they haven't even committed a crime or been arrested or charged with a crime. And that's what we're doing with this red flag. It doesn't address any of the issues on the mental health issue or the crisis, the state of mind of the individual. It basically says, hey, law enforcement, go kick in the door, take their guns and leave them there to stew for 48 hours without addressing their needs or their problems. So we're focusing on an inanimate object, a tool, beating the gun. Now, a firearm is property, right? We buy it, it's ours, we possess it. Property is protected under the Constitution way back into, it even recognized in the Magna Carta before we even had a Constitution, protects property. So this is just, these are some of the issues with it, but from a law enforcement perspective, we're really going to be putting the law enforcement in a dangerous situation. And the immunity clause in there, essentially if the chief of police or the city officers within the city of Grants get a notification that an individual is a threat to themselves or the community, and they go over and they look into this and they say, hey, the guy's great, he's good to go, or that individual's not in crisis, there's nothing going on, have a nice day. They then take that report and hand it over to me at the sheriff's office and say, we looked into this, we don't believe he's a threat to himself or the society. Now I have to go back and do a secondary follow-up if I choose to, and make sure that that person is not a threat to themselves or society. If I come to the same conclusion that that the municipality did, and don't swear out that order to the court, now you have the municipality and the county tied in. So if this individual acts out 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, the city of Grants is going to get named in that lawsuit. I'm going to get named in that lawsuit. They get us both. It's a double-edged sword. There's no cap on the tort, so the financial impact report from this is $36 million. That's the final the fiscal impact report on this particular on this particular law. We didn't get a chance to debate it in the House because it skipped the Judiciary Committee and went straight to the floor, which is also a direct violation of the New Mexico Constitution. 30 days was not something to be debating this particular piece of legislation. I've dealt with it for the past 3 years, very versed on it, and I caution, I just want to make the municipality aware of some of the risks that come with this, and it's a double-edged sword. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. We're all elected officials. We're responsible for the taxpayers' dollars, and we want to make sure that we're spending those dollars in appropriate ways and not against frivolous lawsuits. Over the weekend, while I was in Nevada with the Western State Sheriff's Association, the sheriff, this is how bad this particular law is. The Weld County Sheriff out of Colorado, we're sitting in a training conference. He gets a notification that he's just been red flagged.
charged with the red flag law.
He's been a target of a red flag law because the sheriff is in control of the detention centers in Colorado. So under that law, because the inmate lives in the detention center, he qualifies as a household member of the sheriff because the sheriff controls the detention center. So he got red flagged because he knows that he has a weapon, and it was frivolous, basically a direct threat at the sheriff.
Because the sheriff had a weapon on the outside.
So it's a good thing that the judge caught wind of it before everything escalated and the judge denied that order. But that's how dangerous this is you don't have to, we operate off of probable cause, reasonable suspicion, or preponderance of evidence, depending on what level of crime you're at. This particular law, it doesn't allow for any of that. There was a term used as a civil search warrant. There is no such thing as a civil search warrant. It's that, you have to commit a crime, and there has to be probable cause and evidence based to be able to get a search warrant, to go to your property and look for items. Some people may think, well, why does it work on a domestic violence order versus a emergency? The due process is set in place under a domestic violence order because a crime has been committed, meaning a battery, an assault, a threat. There's something there, and you're given 10 days to appear in court to plead your side of the case. When you talk about the emergency risk protection order, There has been no crime committed. You don't have a right to confront your accuser. You're just met with a court order that says, hey, you're gonna lose your constitutional rights to bear arms. And
No
it could be
due
something
process.
as simple as exercising your First Amendment right
Exactly.
to just vent. You don't even have to be a threat to anybody, just to vent.
Did you hear what he said? He's crazy. It's the First Amendment that they're gonna use to take the Second Amendment. It's
Exactly,
amazing.
and part of the problem with this particular order is, I mean, there's so many issues with it, and we're asking for municipalities to stand in solidarity with the county elected officials as well, in opposition of this red flag, until we can get it challenged in a higher court, where we're not fighting outside influence, political parties, special interest groups, Bloomberg money, whatever you want to call it. We need to level the playing field and debate this in court on a judicial level, where constitutional attorneys can talk about it, not a civil attorney that represents people in personal property loss. And I think it's a good position to be in until we can get a judicial review on the emergency risk protection order. And I'll stand for any questions, because it's a lot.
Questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Reed.
What happens, will we be in violations and the governor signed it into law?
So,
Once
great
we file a
question.
lawsuit, no.
Great question. You as a governing body on a municipality, you're elected by the people, you swear the same oath that everybody else does, and that oath is to protect and defend the Constitution. Your law enforcement agencies and officers will be more subject to scrutiny under this, simply if they take a stance like the sheriff said, hey, we're not gonna enforce that law. We can take that stance, and so can any other law enforcement officer across the state, because no matter what the legislature tells you, a law enforcement officer has discretion. And that discretion is to use whatever law they have available on the books to them. For instance, if I pull you over for speeding, I have the discretion to give you a citation into court, a penalty assessment, or to let you go and say, have a nice day and slow down. That's officer discretion. So when we talk about something like the emergency risk protection order, we have discretion, because the good thing that New Mexico has is we have emergency mental health statute on the books, a law that allows us to deal with an individual that's in crisis, and it deals directly with the individual. So I can use my discretion as a law enforcement officer and say, I'm not going to use the red flag, but I am going to use the current emergency mental health statute. I'm going to go get the individual, I'm going to transport them to a licensed medical physician and figure out why they're in crisis. I'm going to take the threat out of the equation, because a weapon is useless without nobody behind it.
You know,
When
the
you
thing
put
that
somebody
amazed me about
behind
that,
it,
Tony, right there, about that law, is when we brought it up in the committee and we had all the moms that demand action sitting on the other side away from us, they didn't even know there was such a law. It actually removes the threat of the person. Because if you just remove the gun, he's gonna come back home and beat her to death with a hammer, or use a knife, or something else. But you're actually removing the threat.
under
gun is not a
the
threat.
emergency mental health statute, it allows law enforcement to take the threat out of the equation, which is the individual, because
right.
it takes a person, it takes an individual to commit that act, not the tool, the individual. So under that, it allows us to take that individual, take them to a licensed medical physician, get them evaluated, get them the help, whatever may be going on. And you're not violating anybody's constitutional rights. You're not violating any of their due process. You're just getting them the help that they need, and you're helping them, and you're making the community safer as well. And it addresses the root of the problem, not the inanimate object.
Any other questions? Chief Steve,
Sir.
would you like to give us a spiel?
Mr. Mayor, Council, City Manager. Well, I'm not prepared for that one, but he did a great job. But I will say this. Fourth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States says that the people shall be secure in their persons, homes, papers, and effects from unreasonable search and seizures. And no law shall violate that. Every warrant shall be presented by law enforcement before an impartial magistrate based on probable cause. Now, let me explain what probable cause is. If I call and say, if I'm just somebody, or it doesn't matter, an ex-spouse of one of you, and say, he's dangerous, she's dangerous, they're a person they threatened to kill me. You gotta realize how many times we get that as law enforcement officers. How many times, and he's molesting my kids, she's doing this, and it's always based on frivolous or false information. Not every time we take them into custody if it is, but it's probable cause. The same thing that we need to arrest somebody, which is probable cause. Probable cause is defined as a set of circumstances that would convince a reasonable person that a law has been violated, that a crime has been committed, and this guy is the one that did the deed. Without that probable cause, we cannot make an arrest. Just like without that probable cause, we cannot violate anybody's constitutional right, which is a search or a seizure. If I arrest you, that's a seizure. If I take your property, that's a seizure. Basically what the courts, if I shoot you and kill you, that's also a seizure. That's a seizure of your life. Now understand something. We take very importantly and very seriously the Fourth Amendment covers us. I mean, we have to follow that. If not, we are subject to civil rights violations. And so here we have a law that's gone into effect now that based on somebody's say, law enforcement now has the duty, the fiduciary duty to go and start talking to this person. And based on no probable cause, they now are, it's incumbent upon them to seize the weapons. And if they don't, now the government is going to hold us responsible to do that. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a violation of our duty as law enforcement officers, but it's also a violation of every one of your constitutional rights. Understand something. You may not like guns, you may hate guns, you may not agree with guns. It doesn't matter. If you are a citizen of this country, you should be very concerned about the eroding of our rights.
That's right.
As citizens. I don't care if you don't like guns. That's okay. You don't have to own one. But the thing is the moment the government has the power to take any of those 10 amendments that I'm talking about, all of a sudden we become subject and not just citizens. And I stand for questions.
Questions? Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, and council, when the chief brought up the Title 18 lawsuit, we've already been involved in one of those, and they are costly, let me tell you. And ours was over a dog, not a gun, a dog, and it cost a lot of money to the county. And essentially what the ruling was in the civil rights lawsuit was, you cannot hold somebody accountable for a crime they have not committed yet. And all we did was seize a dog, so the lady could not start hoarding animals again. And when we went into court, the question by the judge was, why did you take the animal? So she couldn't create hoarding more animals. You're wrong. Sign how many zeros behind the check. That's how, that was already a ruling. So that's how bad this law contradicts that as well. New Mexico will be the 18th state to enact a red flag law. Out of the 17 current standing laws, I believe Florida had 17 petitions for a red flag. All but one were considered to be frivolous. So there's no, out of all the others, like 16 states, they've all been pretty much found frivolous. And New Mexico's red flag law is totally different than the other 17 states. Some of the language is the same, but it is, even when you talk to an attorney, they look at New Mexico and say, this is the worst we've ever seen, the worst version. So I wanted to add that as well.
Thank you.
So, in looking at the language in it, how I read this is it's basically saying we are in opposition. It doesn't really say we're not going to enforce, right? Is that how you're seeing it as well?
That is correct. In this particular resolution that you have before you was, I had some involvement in drafting it, as well as the other counties across the state who have adopted the same word-for-word resolution. It's not a stance to say we're not going to enforce it. That would be the discretion of the law enforcement. What this resolution does is we as the municipality want to protect people's constitutional rights, and we understand that they're important. And we do not want to allocate any resources to try to violate your constitutional rights. We recognize the constitutional issues as well as the financial issues with this particular law, and that's why we oppose it, or we don't support the red flag, or kind of the stance is we want to wait for a judicial review to come out. And this just helps us. It helps the sheriffs, it helps law enforcement across the state to be able to get this into the legal system. And so right now, being the importance of this is no other state has any legal foundation or legal standings yet to present this into the judicial system, other than New Mexico. That we already have the law enforcement. We already have those standings or those findings. We don't have to wait for somebody to get hurt. We don't have to wait for somebody to get their rights violated. We already have a judicial standing to go forth. We just need to, the stall is we're seeking out the right attorney to represent the citizens and the association.
Any other questions? Dale, you wanna talk on this issue? I'm waiting for you, still carrying.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Dale Perkins, and thank you for the rest of your people. I have been in all the fights up there in Santa Fe. My wife is a paralegal. When someone goes in to get a divorce, and first thing comes out of their mouth is, I'm going to put this law on my husband or my wife because they don't need to have a gun, and I want to make sure I get the upper hand. This is the stuff we're hearing. Also, they said this law will stop suicides. Hey guys, I went to Colorado. I got my nephew's guns. He got through smoking his bowl of pot, took a razor blade and he slit his arms all the way up while he's in the bathtub. This law will not stop suicides. This law will be used to hurt people and take their equipment away from them. We need to figure out what to do to get mental health problems taken care of. I see nothing in this law, and I have not seen anything put out to help somebody. I love our sheriff. I call him my sheriff too, even though I'm out of Albuquerque. And your law enforcement that just got through speaking, God bless all of you. But has any of you had a bad marriage and got a divorce? How about you had a girlfriend or a boyfriend that's mad at you because you broke up? My wife, from 43 years ago, can take and turn this law on me. I haven't seen her for the last 30 years. I left Colorado because of that lady. I moved down here to get some peace. Now, you don't think this is going to be used as a tool? I guarantee this is going to be a tool to hurt people. Also, I asked, how is the guns going to be taken care of? This was at UNM at the pre-hearing over a year ago. They said we're going to stripe numbers on your guns, we're going to throw it in a barrel, and we're going to keep it until you go to court. I asked Linda Lopez, how are you going to take care of them? How am I going to get them back? She says, I'm going to have them destroyed before you even get a chance to get them back. I told her, I've got a $30,000 handgun. I've got a $25,000 pistol that was used by the SS in Germany, and they are valued. I've got written papers on them values. They striped numbers on it, they just took the value down to nothing. It's a gun. She says, oh, don't worry about it, we'll have them destroyed before you get a chance to get them back.
That's fact.
I also wrote 5 things that they need to put in the article into the law for our protection. They tore them up in front of me. We do not have the right to know who turned us in. We do not have the right to sue them for their actions.
No right to face your accuser, guys. Think of that.
I do not have the right to face my accuser, and this is not a criminal law?
That's right.
I'm sorry. That's going to be terrible, bad all the way around. And there's going to be a lot of people get hurt over this. And when I told my wife that I'm coming up here to talk to you guys, she goes, I want to move. I want to go to Grants. And they've already been working on me to move down here. Dave's been working on me for years, Dave Leffler.
Well, welcome. We'll take you anytime you come. I mean,
You sure I'm awful loud now?
That's okay. You'll fit right in with the mayor.
But thank you very much for giving me this time, and
And I want everybody to know too that Dale is, I contacted Dale to come here tonight. He is certified instructor along with Steve Williams, Randy Ryan, Dave Loeffler. I contacted these people to be here tonight to give us a little spiel. And as we get into the next phase of this with the concealed carry for employees, they'll come back up and give us another little spiel about their training and what they plan to do for us. Okay? On that note, Dale, thank you.
thank you for my time, and thank you for your efforts.
Mr. Loeffler, would you like to say a few words on the resolution?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilman, and ladies. I'm a businessman here in town. In my past, I have been accused of things, and I was not able to face my accuser, and I said, if I don't know who you're talking about or what I'm supposed to have done, how can I answer? This law doesn't even give me that chance. Everybody before me has already spoken about all of the terrible things that are involved in this. But let me leave you with a couple of thoughts. Mr. Mayor, you're wearing a USMC sweater. You and I were both taught that M14, that M16, that bayonet, that is not the weapon.
You're the weapon. Thank you.
This law requires our authorities to steal the property of our citizens without benefit of counsel, without benefit of facing your accuser, without being able to defend yourself. Another thought, you ever heard of the term swatting? Where someone calls in that, Frankie, he's causing trouble, he's got a gun.
He's gonna shoot himself, he's gonna shoot his wife.
And all of a sudden, the SWAT team shows up and people die. That's what this law puts in. Now, the last thing I will say is the worst part of this law is the accuser can be anonymous, will not be made to pay for lying. If it's a righteous accusation, as the sheriff said, there's already a process to take care of the problem and get help. This law does no good. This law is based in outside interests, paying for our legislators to do evil to the people of this state. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, you wanna talk on this? And then we'll do the concealed carry next?
I don't want to, but I got thrown under the bus.
Well, I appreciate you coming up my behest, okay? I really appreciate it.
And I'm an outsider. I live in the suburbs of Blue Water Village out there, not downtown. But everything they said's true. The law's just stupid, beyond stupid. It cannot possibly work on so many levels. It's wrong, and you know, what are they going to do? They talked about an ex-spouse or somebody just angry at you. What are they going to do when they come after me or Dave sitting there? Where are they going to store them 100 guns each of us got? And log them in and give them back when it becomes frivolous.
That's not part of the plan.
And in my case, I got boxes of parts that aren't legally a firearm yet. I'm a federally licensed manufacturer of ammunition and firearms, so they can haul them all off. Well, it's not gonna end well when they show up, but they can haul them all off, and I just build another one 5 minutes later, so. And I'd like to speak on the next one too.
You betcha. You betcha. Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you very much. Jack, you want to speak on this?
Me?
Yeah, you're written down here. Jack Martin.
Anyway, that wasn't what I was gonna talk about.
Okay, well, talk about whatever
But
you
I
want
will
to talk
say
about. You're on the list.
I do want to say something about it though. You know, they was talking about arresting people. If someone can be arrested for being mentally retarded, I think somebody should go down and get the governor.
I didn't hear you say that again, please.
She's crazy.
Careful, you're something your guts, Jack.
She'll probably come get mine, I guess. But anyhow, what I signed up for is, I was wondering how you're going to do on the billboard for the junior OTC.
We're
Have you
gonna fix
thought
it,
about
yeah.
getting that straightened up yet?
We're gonna fix it.
Okay, that's good. And then there's one other thing, and don't get mad before I finish talking. It's you know, you put up a barrier so we couldn't drive up in front of the museum.
Yep.
That's okay. Only one condition. We do need a key, and I'll tell you why. If somebody, there's a lot of old people climbs that little hill there. We've had a couple here lately that had to sit down and rest when they got up there. And if one of them happened to have a heart attack, we would need a key so the ambulance could get up there closer. And I'd like for you to let us have a key and we'd keep it. We're not gonna go up there, we ain't gonna ride up there. It was our mistake to start with that we didn't stop it when Laura first brought it up. I admit that. But you know how stubborn I am. We'd been doing it for 20-some years and I thought.
We ought to just keep doing it since we've always done it that way, huh? Even if it is wrong. It's okay, Jack. We'll get you a key.
Thank you, sir.
We'll get you a key. Anything else?
And go get the governor.
Okay. Randy Ryan, you want to talk on the resolution? And then you can talk on the concealed carry when we come back. On the next one around.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, again, I can't really add much more than what everybody has already said, but that resolution violates the Constitution, 2nd, 4th, 5th, and the big one, the 14th, which is due process. Under that resolution, there is no due process. You do not have the right to face your accuser. You do not have the right to defend yourself while your accuser is making the threats against you. If it would please you all, I would be really happy if you would support the extreme risk, or the resolution against the extreme risk.
Thank you, Randy. Robert?
Mr. Mayor, City Council, City Manager. 4 weeks ago, Sheriff Mace gave me a copy of the Lee County resolution, which would be a protection for our county against these red flag laws. I took it, I handed it to our county manager, who gave it to our lawyers, who tweaked it to present to our commission meeting, and then I found out last week that it did not get put on the agenda. And I found out later that it would just be me and Ralph Lucero that would have probably voted for it. I was extremely disappointed. Let's not fool ourselves why these laws keep popping up every legislative session. It's not about protecting people. It's about stripping us of our rights to protect ourselves. Not only from those that would do us harm, but those that would, even our government, when our government gets out of line. And I've got to tell you right now, from the people, a lot of the people that I see that are pushing these laws, I wouldn't want them governing me. And as a result, we're seeing lots of people that are stepping up right now and running for office to challenge these people that voted for these laws. And they're going to give them a race. And I just want to tell you right now that I feel very strongly about our constitutional rights. They are being whittled and chipped away, and we must do something now. We must stand and say, no more. This is our country. I can tell you, we live in a state right now that does not like to prosecute criminals. We like to open the doors and let them out. So we want to take away the guns and the right to protect ourselves from those that obey the laws? I don't understand this. It doesn't make any sense. They want to take our guns away and our rights to protect ourselves because they want to control us. And I hope, I pray that the council has the courage to be able to pass this resolution tonight. I stand for it. I love this country. It is the greatest country in the world, and I believe the Constitution was inspired by God. And if we don't stand up for it now, we will have nothing down the road. I promise you that. Thank you.
Ray, you want to speak on this, or you want to just do concealed carry?
Let me just say one thing.
Come on up here, buddy.
I want to play the age rule. Our Democrat leaders said you got to listen to the elders of the community. I'm 80 years old, so listen to me. I'm an elder in the community. This defies all reason and common sense, and all I can do is repeat what they have said. But the one thing that troubles me more than anything in it is the person that accuses me. I have no protection. I can seek no redress for anything. And that, of all of the parts, if you only pick on just one of them, that to me is the key. You have to be able to protect yourself legally from, I'm trying to think of a nice word to say, people that would do you harm.
Thank you, Ray. Comments from the council, Sidney?
I've got him about 7 years.
Well, since this is my last meeting,
Let's hope, according to the laws that we got, and they voted this crap in, it's not till April 1st is when we can finally do it, so. Of course, it could be if you want it to be.
it is my last meeting, so I can say that I am a Democrat, and the Democratic Party platform does have issues with gun control. I sat here and listened to only men.
I'll speak if you like.
Come on up here, please.
I want to see some women.
Please, step up. What's your name? Come on up and give your name. She says that we're not diversity here. Please step up and give your name, please. Come on up to the mic. Give your name and speak.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Is it okay?
No, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to address. So my name is Vanessa Chavez. Thank you all for allowing me to speak this evening. As a single female who lives on her own, when I heard about the response time in our community, especially being such a rural area, I think it's ridiculous to have any type of thought that I have to turn over my arms. I don't want to have to think about that. I do not want to have to think about trying to lie and then go borrow a gun from Dave Bluffler if they come and take my guns. Because inevitably, if I have to protect myself, I'll have to find other ways. And I'm not just going to wait for 24 hours or however long it's going to take for them to get my guns back. I'll take matters into my own hands. I'm not just going to stay in my home as a victim. And that would make me break the law even further. So I don't want to have to be put into that position. So thank you for that.
Thank you for standing up and speaking, because I can give you another example of that right there. When we were at the hearings, okay, on one side of the room you had moms that demand action and a bunch of white people. They were the only people on that side of the room. When you looked at the side of the room that wanted to defend us and keep our gun rights, there were Native Americans, there were females, there were whites, there were blacks, there were Hispanics. They represented New Mexico. They didn't just represent the elite from UNM. Am I lying, Tony? You were president at those meetings. Was I lying, Dale? You were president at those meetings.
One thing I'm gonna say about that meeting, the ones that are wanting to take our guns, they were all wearing red shirts, they were all paid for.
By Bloomberg. But I'm
Bloomberg.
Go ahead, Tony.
So just to reiterate what the mayor said is, I got the sign-in sheet for the committee hearings. Every address on the sign-in sheet was from Albuquerque or Rio Rancho that supported the bill. They all were brought in on a bus together to the legislature. The people that opposed this bill, we got the sign-in sheet. They're from all over the state of New Mexico, all walks of life, no matter what, no matter, it wasn't about a party, it was about people. And Mr. Jones, you brought up a great point, because there's a young lady that works with us, and she's a survivor of domestic violence. She's a survivor because she was armed and was able to fight off her attacker. There's a lot of women that are engaged in this, and reason being is a lot, Mr. Loeffler can speak about this as well, because you do have women that are, that want to defend themselves and protect themselves, and the only thing that they can do is make themselves less of a threat by arming themselves. And they'll go in and buy that, but this red flag order, even under a domestic violence order, if your attacker knows that you're armed, these are facts, this isn't rumor. You're you're a lot less likely to get attacked by your perpetrator if he knows, or if they know that you're armed, right? So what do is to make you a soft target and an easy target, they disarm you through a protection order or a red flag order. And then we end up coming and cleaning up the mess and telling your family that sorry. And those are facts. It's not, and I was educated on that by a young lady that basically says, several of them, that says, the only reason why I'm not a statistic is because I was able to fight off my attacker because I was armed. And some of them chose to use a firearm. One lady said, I got a machete, and she brought it with her. You know, so there are some different statistics out there, and it's not a political issue. This is a constitutional issue. This is about we the people. And as an elected form of government, the city council, as the elected form of government, the county commissioner, we'd only delegate our authority to a higher level, meaning the state legislature or even up to a congressional. At any time, that's the importance of this resolution. We can pull that authority or that delegation back to represent the people, the platform that we should be as elected officials. If I was asked by, if I had a majority of citizens coming up and say, Sharon, you're on the wrong platform, you're preaching the wrong message, then I would stand down, but I'm not. Overwhelmingly, I get emails. I can't even keep up with the emails, the phone calls, the letters that come into my office, the people that come into my office. Just by the people in this room, a show of how many hands are afraid of losing your constitutional rights under a ridiculous piece of legislation. If we look at just the people in this room, that's majority. That's what we represent, the majority of the constituents that elect us into office. And we should be representing those people on that platform of we the people. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything else, Lee? Hang on, Dave, let her finish.
Well, it was just, you know, they're making the comment, I have guns. And so people, you know, and there's a hell of a lot of people who don't like me. So you're just saying that, okay, I'm going to be,
So somebody calls on you for your guns,
then, you know, then they do.
and you're just gonna give them up.
Well, there's always more. The whole
That's my whole point making, right there, Sidney. They're not idiotic, that's the whole point I'm making here.
I'm saying that I have more trust in people. I have more trust in myself and more trust in people that everybody's going to say, hey, go to Sydney's house because she's going to kill herself. Well, everybody knows I'm not going to. I take out everybody, you know. You got me first.
The whole town, according to you, right? You don't like any of us people. But that's another story in itself. Manny, you got any comments?
Oh, I agree on it.
Rick, you got any comments? Fred, you got any comments? I got a couple comments. You wanna say something?
Yes.
Give us your name and have at it. This
Hi.
is America.
My name's Mary Spangler. On the comment if you wanted females to speak, I don't want our rights taken away. You know, I work with a bunch of criminals. I don't want to not have access to weapons when I want, you know, when I need them. And as far as being able to just, there's more, I don't make the kind of money just to go replace them whenever I want. I don't think it's right that our weapons be taken away from us if we choose to have them. It's just not right. It's wrong. Like I said, I deal with criminals all day long. I don't want that right taken away from me if I can't defend myself when I need to.
Thank you very much. Okay, my turn. First point is the mental health aspect of it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
quick point.
come on up, say your name, give us your name up here so we can get it on the record, all that good stuff. We know who you are, but we need it on the record.
My name is Mario Eperino. Some of you have met my wife. She's a recent immigrant to the United States. She's 5 foot tall. Almost anyone in this room can do her harm just with their bare hands. If she doesn't have the right to defend her life with a weapon, if I don't have the right to defend my wife's life with a weapon, I'm not the biggest guy here. I'm sure there are half a dozen people in this room that can beat the crap out of me, pardon my English. So the point is, if the guns are the problem, the Constitution is the problem, the Founding Fathers are the problem, the very existence of the United States is the problem. I was born in a communist country. None of you have lived in a totalitarian system. I did, as a kid, but visited as an adult. When I landed, I was practically strip searched for even the minor of things that we take for granted. I was followed by secret police. My relatives were questioned as to why they had an American visitor, etc., etc. You want to live in that kind of country? Continue down the road. And please, sir, don't shake your head unless you've lived in that kind of situation, or your ancestors were persecuted by the Nazis or by Stalin or any of these people who are wolves in disguise. Those sheep that are in your legislature are wolves. They want to take everything from you and take it onto themselves. The power of the people through their elected officials will become the power of those that have the money to pay for it.
Bloomberg.
Exactly. And I'm from New York, so I know that son of a bitch. Okay? Every one of those rich billionaires, and I used to work for a very close friend of our current president, they can afford 4, 5, 10 detectives, NYPD retired detectives, to protect them from anything that comes their way. But the average person doesn't have that right, or that means. Sorry to be so...
Hold on a minute.
Yes.
I'm shaking my hand in agreement with you, not...
Sorry.
Don't judge me, okay?
I misread your body language. I apologize.
Don't read my body language, okay? Because I won't put up with it.
Huh?
Because that's my freedom, okay?
Thank you. Thank
No
you very
problem.
much.
I apologize.
Careful, that First
I
Amendment will
sincerely
cost you.
apologize.
Careful, that First Amendment will cost you now. My comments, guys, the mental health aspect of it first, okay? I personally had a family member shoot himself, okay? He didn't use one of the guns that were there in the house because they were my guns and my brother's guns. He went and bought his own damn gun to do it. A person that's gonna kill himself is gonna kill himself, and there ain't a whole lot anybody can do about it. Because if they're dead serious about it, they don't even tell nobody, they just do it. And I'm living proof of that. I've dealt with that, I've seen it firsthand. The second thing I got on this is, the governor's calling for people to resign. She wants my sheriff to resign if they're not gonna enforce this unconstitutional law. The only person that should resign is the governor. She took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, to uphold the Constitution of New Mexico. As soon as she was elected, and she took them oaths, she walked into that big fancy office, she threw the Constitution in the trash, and she threw her oath in the trash, and she does whatever she wants because she thinks she's a dictator and can get away with it. Okay? The last one I got for you is, everybody says, well, it's to go hunting and fishing. No. Okay? Number one, the Constitution of the United States was designed, and the Second Amendment was designed so that we could create a militia to stand up to the government. Period. Not to go hunting ducks, not to go hunting deer. It was to create a militia so that we could fight our own government when they got out of line and they got too stupid. And that's to the point where we're getting right now. So I say the governor is the one that needs to resign because she's the one that wants to violate everybody's rights. On that note, I will entertain a motion for the resolution 2016-64.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Councilor Reynolds.
No.
Councilor
Yes.
Vasquez. Councilor Lucero.
Yes.
Councilor Padilla.
Yes.
The next one is mine. This one is staff concealed carry certification. I came up with this idea when they had the shooting down in Hobbs at the library. And I was thinking about it, and especially now with these red flag laws and the governor wants to take away every right that we have, I figured what better way to defend the citizens of Grants than to arm their employees. Now, I've had people call me and say, oh my goodness, you're gonna make everybody carry a gun. I'm not comfortable with that. No, okay? One of them sitting right here at this table with me, okay? No, it's gonna take 3 criteria. The first one is you've got to have the confidence to handle a firearm. The second one is you've got to have the courage to carry that firearm. And the third one is you've got to be willing to go through the training and everything it takes to do that. Once we've done that, and you've got your license, then I'm going to encourage you to carry that weapon on the job. And every place that we do this, we'll put a little sign in the window that warns everybody coming in there that we do have an armed employee on the premises. I guarantee you, we won't have no shootings because people go and shoot where there are no armed people at. Because they know if they go to a place where there are guns, they're going to get shot. So they don't do that. They go to schools where, of course, there's no guns. They go to libraries where there's no guns. They go to county buildings where there's no guns. Well, my idea was to make sure that as long as we have a confident, courageous, and willing employee that's certified and trained, why shouldn't we have that person concealed carrying on their person, not in their purse for you ladies, on your person? Because if they start shooting in the library or they start shooting over here and you got to run back to your office to your purse to get the gun, what good is that? We need to pull that sucker right now and return fire. I mean, period. So that's where I'm at with this. And as we get closer to going forward with this, we'll take it from there. Del Perkins, first up for the concealed carry. Give me your thoughts. And thank you for coming all the way down here. And he's one of these certified NRA instructors with all the stats and all that good stuff.
May I please approach the
Yes,
bench?
please. You already gave me one, so. Hey, Jake, you knows it's 7 o'clock. It's time to go.
The packet I handed you guys is my resume for my teaching. I'm number 11 on the DPS list. I'm one of the original 10 that put this into the legislation back in 1990. I can tell you about the garbage we went through. We found them hiding underneath the desk. I've been personally called and said that I was doing this to kill his people, even though I lived in the man's district. Now, the law says that everyone is allowed, that goes through the courses, that has the right to carry a firearm. You've got people that are in your libraries. They don't need to look like they're carrying a gun. I've got a gun on. I do not advertise I've got a gun on. Every time I go to the roundhouse, I've got one. Tony knows it. Everyone does know it. Now, I teach New Mexico and Utah. That way you got 43 states you can travel into on reciprocity rights. Utah, all state schools, you're allowed to carry your firearm onto state properties. Have you heard of a mass shooting up there in Utah in one of the schools?
No.
They're janitors, they're teachers, they're principals. The crosswalk guards are all armed. I know when we first started this, I heard, oh my God, there's gonna be blood running down the streets, everyone's gonna be shooting each other. No, does not happen that way. Right now, there's only one person I know that's gotten in trouble, and it wasn't because he got in trouble with his firearm. He was an instructor that got hung for the bad things that he was doing. Now, the instructors, I'm the gentleman that enforced and put it into MMAC that every 2 years that we have to go through a class. Every 3 years, I have to go
We'll
to...
recertify this staff there at the city every year. And we will ensure that they go through what we need to get done.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I want you to tell me, is just your training, what you're gonna do for the class and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, it's a 15-hour course. We go over storage. How do you carry it? Where do you carry it? What is your laws? What's the rights? My wife is a paralegal. You get all of that in the packet. You take care of that problem. After that, there will be hands-on training in my class on how do you draw your firearm. Where do you draw it from? How are you going to carry it? What method are you going to carry it by? How are you going to lock it up and secure it when you're not carrying it? Me? It's on my body. I know exactly where it's at. At the 1 year mark, I want to come back. I want to do a bunch of shooting.
When we pick the instructors, you will be required to go back.
I want to see the shooting. I want to take and run them through the courses. I don't want to see them standing static and going bang, bang. I want some movement. I want them moving with their firearms and hitting their targets. And shooting from the hip and hitting their targets. It can be done, and it's done easy. Anyone that's got any training. Now, at the 2 year mark, we have to come back by law and take and do a course.
Yeah.
So what we've talked about is every year, the ones that are carrying through the city portion has to go through a class. Mandatory.
No. Only if they're willing, courageous, and confident.
And
not
able.
mandatory, they've got to be willing to do this, okay?
And able
Yes.
to do it.
I mean, period. So,
Now, everyone...
are you good with city employees carrying?
Yes, I am.
You'd be good with walking into City Hall, the library?
I expect right now to see at least 3 guns up there, right this minute. And I bet you at least there's 8 or 9 back here.
I bet you there's a bunch out there. Thank you, Dale.
I do thank you for having me up. Thank you for the call.
Thank you very much. Dave? You want to give me a spiel about concealed carry?
Okay. I am not a current instructor. I have been an instructor in the past. As you probably know, I own the gun store in town. As a citizen, I applaud the idea of having people armed. Disarming people because they work for government does not make sense to me.
That's right.
I have been arming people, men and women and children, for about 50 years now. My daughters were taught to shoot when they were about 3. I bought my first rifle when I was 7. My mother took me into the green stamp store and handed me the books. The first young lady I helped arm herself was a driver for a delivery company, and she was going into very bad areas, and she was afraid. Really interesting, she was my lab partner in engineering school. The one story that I want to relate about not being armed is when I was working for the Air Force in Sacramento, California, I worked in a gun store. And there was a young lady that came in, she was going through a bad divorce. And she decided she needed a gun, and I sold her one. California had a 10-day waiting period, so she was disarmed by her government for 10 days. Well, not really. She died in the 3rd day where her husband came and killed her. Arming people, the willing, if you're not willing, please don't carry a gun.
That's right.
If you're not able, please don't carry a gun. If you're not trained, please don't carry a gun around me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Steve?
What he said. And, I've been doing this for a long time. Right? And the only way you can stop this stuff from happening is to empower the victims. They're the only ones that's guaranteed to be at the scene of the crime. That last thing in Texas, that the church went down 6 seconds. Okay, 7 people drew a firearm in that large congregation. Only one had a shot and he fired. The first guy shot, the bad guy shot, was trying to get his gun out, and he shot him in 4 seconds into the start of the. He didn't get it out quick enough. He fumbled the draw. The guy begged, but give the other guy enough time to shoot him, take him down 1 shot in 6 seconds. Police cannot possibly respond that fast. And we got some great cops around here. I used to be one. But when you get law enforcement to come in, they got about 1 second, less than a second, but they come through that door to figure out who needs shot and who doesn't. The only person and people that know immediately who needs shot and who doesn't is the people that's in the office every day after day. And yes, they need to have a concealed carry permit. There's 3 of us here that can offer that. I'm also an NRA training counselor. I can teach the instructor certification courses. So I need at least 4 people that you can have your own in-house instructors. We're not training cops, we're training civilians that to operate in their environment that they're familiar with. They're not a cop, they're not expected to jump in the car, go 100 miles an hour to a site and go through the door and decide in a half a second who needs shot. They don't need that amount of training, but they do need what Mr. Perkins was talking about. They need to know how and when to shoot, how to store it, how to carry it, how. You can't get somebody from 0 to 60 in 15 hours. You can't do it, but it's a start. So, like I said, if you want training for your in-house instructors, that's possible.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. Randy? I worked with Randy for over 20 years at the prison. We went to sniper school together, just so you know a little bit of history with me and Mr. Ryan.
Mayor, ladies and gentlemen. Again, like Marty said, we've been around each other for quite a while. I got over 33 years of carrying a badge of one kind or another. And I've been a firearms instructor since about 1981. I'm also a DPS, New Mexico law enforcement instructor, and still am. I became a concealed carry instructor in, I think it was 2004. So I've been an instructor ever since the inception. I've had, in this area and stuff like that, I've actually trained pretty close to 800 people here in the community and everything. So this is something I think that everybody should end up doing. As far as the class, it's a 15-hour class on the initial. 2 years after the initial class, you have to go to a 2-hour refresher where you end up reshooting and doing some, maybe some classwork. At the end of 4 years, you do your 4-hour renewal. Not a big thing. As far as in-service training, if you want to do it, I'm also a competitive shooter. I travel 5, 6 different states during the course of the year doing different types of shooting. I do what they call USPSA. Under USPSA, I've been a 7-time champion for New Mexico to the sectionals for either division or class, and 5-time law enforcement champion, either division or by class. As far as different setups and stuff like that, if you want to do moving type of training, moving targets, static targets, disappearing targets,
Self-defense is what we want. Defense,
all that stuff,
Randy.
now all that stuff will come right into it, but it's all that different type of
All we want is our people to
stuff.
understand that they're there to defend their life and the lives of citizens that are there within their charge.
Right. And part of the class, what I do, I get into the elements of a crime, I get into the elements of self-defense, ability, opportunity, imminent jeopardy. I pass out all the state statutes. I also get into the jury instructions as far as self-defense, and we talk about that. So, if you want to do it, I'll be glad to help.
Thank you, Randy. Let's see, Mr. Windhorse, you want to talk on concealed carry? Are you gonna tell me that you're gonna take the classes and get a license, or do you already have it?
Well, I'm not carrying.
Why?
Why?
I want to know why not.
I've had a concealed weapons permit for 30 years. From the state of Utah, state of Arizona, and the state of New Mexico. When I'm not at work, I'm always carrying a gun, always carrying a concealed weapon. I do, and I do believe that if you have the will, and if you have the courage, and you have the ability to do it, that you should be there. Obviously, we have a lot of cowards that are out in different communities that have no problems going into an area where people do not have weapons to defend themselves and go in and wipe out a bunch of students at a school, or going to a movie theater, or going to a restaurant, or going to a church, of all places. And I believe that we live at a time that if you are legally permitted to carry a gun, you should be able to do so. And that's how I feel.
So you'll be carrying a gun once we implement this?
If the city council passes this,
It's gonna happen.
I will be glad to sign up for the training and do it, and I will be there to help.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Ray?
Yes, sir, Mayor, councilors, I'm coming to speak as a department head. My own feelings are not important right at the moment, but I've been through several active shooter training courses. And the one thing that I've learned from those classes and learned from the news is the bad guys always go where there's no guns.
That's right.
If they think there's a gun there, they're gonna go someplace else because they want to hit the headlines of doing some nasty deed. So the only way that we can ensure safety in our community is for everyone that's willing, able, and trained is armed. And I urge you to pass this resolution and make it part of our city structure. So I personally will carry, and anybody that works for me that wants, I would encourage it. Thank you.
And that's what I say. I encourage every single city employee that has the ability, is courageous enough, confident enough to do it, to go through the training, once we get it going. Because like I said, my plan here, guys, is to have this to present to you at the last meeting in June, so that we can have it in the budget, probably, I'm saying between $10,000 and $20,000 in the budget to do this, and we'll vote it that last deal in June, so we can implement it starting in July. And at that point, we'll bring these guys back, give us presentations, and we'll hear which one of them is gonna get the job. And we might use all three of them, you know, because we're gonna probably have 4 or 5 different classes in this process. So,
Damn right.
you know, I mean, as many employees as we possibly can get that are willing, able, confident, and courageous enough to do it. And that was just a discussion item tonight on that. There's no action until, of course, we get it ready to rock. On that note, I'll take any comments from the council on it.
I did my original concealed carry locally a number of years ago.
With Randy? Cool. Did you like him as an instructor?
Actually, I did.
Cool. Oh, Randy, you're impressing her. You're one person she likes in the town.
What a guy.
Randy, you got any comments?
I have been held at gunpoint once here in 1982, right outside of Sonic. This was in May. Had a young man in a lowrider, threw my wife and my kids out there. So I approached him. As soon as he pulled that gun out, I grabbed him and I broke his finger. He doesn't shot you in first second, he's not gonna shoot you. And if you take action before it happens, that's the best action to take.
Shoot first.
I just grabbed his gun and broke his finger.
Rick, you got comments?
Yeah, I listened to all this. I'm tired of seeing these shootings on TV, especially churches. So, I think it's time we stand up for ourselves.
Fred, you got any comments? Not at all. All righty, moving on. Thank you, guys. Every one of you that came here to talk about the concealed carries, about the resolution tonight, defending our rights, I appreciate you, and I promise, as long as I live, I will stand up for the Constitution. Period. That's just the way it is.